Welcome back to Inside the Kingdom, your all access pass into the colorful and creative world of comics. This week, we're engaging in a roundtable discussion where we're going to dive deep into the evolution of Comics Kingdom. I'm Alex, your host for today, and joining me are two incredible guests, Sarah Hartley, wizard in brand strategy, and Olivia de Alba, powerhouse of artistic talent, who together help King Features reimagine and bring to fruition the new Comics Kingdom.
Hi, everyone. I'm joined today by Sarah Hartley, founder and chief creative at her studio By Heart, and Olivia de Alba, senior visual designer at 10 Up, who both have helped King Features reimagine and bring to fruition what we are now debuting to you all, the new Comics Kingdom website. So thank you for joining us here today at Inside the Kingdom. Hi, Olivia. Hi, Sarah. If you will, let's start off with Olivia. Want to introduce yourself?
All right. Hi, I'm Olivia de Alba. And as he so eloquently said, I am the senior visual designer at 10 Up. I have been designing for at least 10 years now. It feels like longer. And I have been drawing for as long as I can remember. It has been a massive passion of mine and something that I find as a cornerstone for me. And I always wanted to be actually a comic book artist, but that didn't pan out for me. So I decided to go into a more traditional sense of web design. And so that is how I met the lovely people at Comics Kingdom. So that's my little intro.
Oh, well, Olivia, actually, I didn't know that you were a burgeoning comic artist. That's something new to find out.
I was really wanting to be a manga artist, and that is a very fun story. And I have a bunch of different characters around me, but I do still have my original pieces of work. And I had one comic I was working on, but I realized I wanted to make money, a lot of and so I knew I couldn't compete with the artists in Japan. And so I went with website design.
Oh, I'm gonna have to follow you down that road.
It's like believing.
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure out how to surface out Olivia's script here. Maybe on Comics Kingdom.
I'll definitely have to show you some of my original things. You'll understand. I was pretty good, but I was really good at drawing like skulls and such. So I went towards more realistic things. And so that led me towards how can I really channel my drawing skills as well as more of my strategic thinking. And so it really came to fruition when I figured out what UI UX was.
All right. Well, I mean, we're lucky to have you in this capacity and what we've done so far. Mm-hmm. And of course, Sarah, our lovely brand guide guru at By Heart.
I'm like, hello, I should introduce myself. I'm literally looking at my own LinkedIn. I was like, who am I? I was like, equal parts insatiable investigator, diplomatic disruptor, compassionate translator, and nurturing team builder. I'm also humble. It's funny, Olivia, that you talk about, your first love and how you came to your work. But I moved to New York City almost 20 years ago. In September, it'll be 20 years. To be an actor. And I went to drama school, which is ultimately storytelling school. And, I figured out a way to be creative and survive and thrive in this incredible city that we call home. I'm actually not sure. I was like, are we all in New York? Are we? No, Olivia's like, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, no, I've been to New York several times, but I'm actually from sunny yet rainy Florida.
Okay, but congratulations. I feel like you're making better choices in many ways, like arguably. Yeah. I was like, we could debate. That's a different podcast. I was like, I'll listen to it though. So I, in sort of a similar way to you, I sort of took a leap into design and then became a creative director, started at NBC Universal, have since worked at every kind of industry, creative challenge, and really found that I have a deep love of brand. It's interesting, in your show notes, Alex, you described me as a marketing guru. And I was like, should I touch that? Should I say something about that? And it's not because I'm not a marketer, because of course I'm a marketer. But I think that there's a really big misunderstanding about the word marketing, and people have a lot of preconceived notions about this and all language. But if in its most reductive state, marketing is how you talk about what you do and how you package what you do. Brand, in its highest form, is that, and it's also what you do. It's what you do now and what you will do next. And I, together with my incredible team, like to think of myself as a humble servant / doer of all things. And that's what was so exciting about this opportunity, and about founding my own studio, where we're now years into it and have done some incredible rebrands. But this has been one of the greatest privileges of my life, is working on this particularly heartfelt project. Oh, you are on mute, Alex. You're like, I'm just going to mute. Sarah's going to take the wheel.
This is our.
I am on mute for some reason.
Exactly. I was like, Olivia, it's all us now. We got to take the reins.
Tell us everything. Tell us everything.
For you.
No, what I was going to say is that thank you for that, obviously, Sarah. And super appreciative of those words. And you're absolutely right. I mean, this has been for anyone that's joining us here. I'm Alex. I'm sorry, the director of direct to consumer comics here at King Features. Part of this brain meld, I guess, that we all collaboratively brought together, this new website, this new experience that you're all likely enjoying at the time of this, as you hear this. But no, this has been one of the greatest projects I've ever been a part of. I'm happy to hear the same from you, Sarah, and obviously Olivia. All of the insights and all the design help and every thought and nook and cranny that you all put into this, I think, breeds itself in what we've produced, and going down to those living values, right? The bite of delight and so forth that we spent so much time really weeding out and thinking of. No, again, super appreciative of the whole project. But to all of you as fans and listeners to the podcast, I wanted to, highlight that this was totally a team effort. While we're representing everyone here on this call collectively as just 3 individuals, we thank you to everyone at the 10 Up team, everyone at By Heart, and everyone at King Features that came together to put this together and really build this new platform and this new love letter to comics that we call Comics Kingdom.
Ooh, Alex, call it a love letter. I love that.
It really is. There's so much love and heart that went into this entire project from start to finish, and you could feel it through the collaboration process. Like, I really have never been on a project that felt so integrated and so passionate. So very pleased with how it turned out. I'm excited for everyone to experience it.
So, jumping right off of that, I mean, let's go right into it. Let's talk about what this project was, the overview of it, and why now, right? I mean, comics exist everywhere. Why now? Why do we do this? So I'll take lead from a business angle. Why now? I've joined King Features now. This will be going into my 3rd year. Throughout this experience, I came from a publishing background, so I am newly minted in the comic world as an executive. However, I've always been a fan of the medium. I can't draw worth a lick. I can't draw a stick figure, but I can write. So, I've always had that sort of high level goal in mind, I should say. But working with this and being such I call myself a kid in a candy store, I recognize almost immediately, that there was a need here at King Features that we weren't serving adequately at the time. Comics Kingdom existed prior to what you see today, what I lovingly call the Purple Nightmare at that time. But it was just something that needed to be spruced up, and really been given that love and attention to detail that these creators that we so happily represent do in their own right with their art, but just collectively the medium in itself, just the detail, the love that goes into everything that gets created at King Features and beyond. And so we wanted to build a home for it. Now in 2024, obviously, I'd say a couple years later than we would have anticipated or really wanted. But nonetheless, we're here and we're so proud and happy to be to be doing so. That's the why now. We also see that there's an inflection in this industry. There's an inflection point happening right now. But it's almost, you can say this is a renaissance in comic cartooning. There's so much content being created, so many comics available digitally, in print, in comic book form, internationally. And yet you see that newspapers, and where traditionally newspaper comics have existed, is in a state of flux, and that's in a state of transition. That isn't as ripe, I guess, as where you would think the medium is, right? Collectively, again, this being a renaissance, there's so much content out there. Consuming it became a challenge. How to get everything into a place that is consumable for young audiences, newer audiences, and even legacy classic audiences alike. And so we set about trying to solve that problem with this platform, with this website. Um, and we entrusted you all on this call and as teams to help us along that journey. And so that's our why now at King Features. But how about yourself, Sarah? Why now?
Well, it's interesting that there's a lot of the possible answers to that, but it's interesting. I got to speak to many comic strip creators, teams, and individuals, across sort of a spectrum of, generations in the art form. And something that I asked the veterans is, if you were, and I actually asked everyone this, if you were to give advice to, a young or up and coming emerging artist who wanted to get into comic strip creation, what would you tell them? And all of the veterans said, diversify. I don't know if you can. And it was really sad. It was really, and then talking to the young emerging voices and realizing how unsustainable it was for them. It's incredible. It's like with another client of mine, I always know which doctors are going to have the most heart, because they usually come from like emergency medicine, because you don't go into emergency medicine for many other reasons besides you really want to help people. And you don't go into comic strip creations for many other reasons than you need to make comic strips. You need to communicate in this way. However, if we can't figure out a way to actually help people like actually sustain this art form, right? To actually be able to do this, because there's literally more money in in the graphic novel or in illustrating in other ways. I mean, Olivia, you created lovely illustrations here, like based on we had a light foundation, and you took and you ran with it. You say that I wanted to do this, but you found a way, right? But that's what they're telling the young artists, is like, maybe you should go into design, and as an actor turned, designer, creative director, all of the things, I relate. And also I was like, no, not today, not on my watch. What can we do? And one other thing, which is that I was like, I thought maybe I'd talk about it later, but when I was young, and it's older than I, but there's this Peter Pan. It was a filmed play. It was starring Mary Martin. I think it was filmed in like the 60s. But I grew up on this live action Peter Pan stage production that was filmed. And at one point, and Tinkerbell is played by a light, like a flashing light. And at one point, Tinkerbell is fading. And Peter Pan looks out into the audience, and right there at the camera, and imagine me as a child, right? And says, like, if we all clap, maybe Tinkerbell will come back. And this like childhood image kept coming to me during this project, in terms of that, like this urgency of like, we had to like, if we all, so many of us love it, and it's part of our own childhoods and for generations, and it's birthed so many other mediums, and it felt like that was what I was doing metaphorically, as I was coming around and talking to everyone and saying, well, if we all lean in and we all clap, we will keep the comics coming. And so just from a pure heart standpoint, that's why now.
I love that. I love that. Again, speaking to that love letter element, and you're absolutely right. This isn't an industry for the weak, if you will, right? It is something that is almost, at least at the creative level, something that becomes really, really, really core to a person, right? The medium, what they're sinking their time and effort into. And so you're absolutely right, making it equitable across the board and making sure that we keep the comics coming, or doing our part to do so, was part of this. But Olivia, how about you? What about now? Why
That
now?
that actually kind of stems what I was thinking is because of the fact that I grew up reading manga and also comics. My first comic was Batman. And of course, I'm darkness. I love it. And there was just something so thrilling about reading something that was drawn by hand and the storytelling that was able to be conveyed by texture was really interesting to me. And so for me, I think the reason why now is because of the fact that, like you said, there is a renaissance. There's something about the new generations that there is an appeal to really have this connection to the past, and as well as just this medium is very fascinating for them and for us, for everyone right now. And so there needs to be a better way to showcase that, to really highlight it, make sure that it is in the best forum. And so unfortunately, that is really the case, is just going digital is how people really want to ingest their content because we are in a digital world. And so why now for this website? It needed love. It needed to be able to have an easier user flow and have people really be able to explore and understand that there is a lot of content, but here's how we can help you find the right content for you. So that was my mission the entire time, was really making sure there's some elements of fun, as well as making sure we're highlighting the content. At the end of the day, it's about the comics. So
I love that. And actually that segues right into the next, I guess, portion of this, which Sarah, I know you can definitely expand on this, right? I want to dig into the color palette, what your initial impressions of Comics Kingdom was and how that birthed what we have today. And yeah, I'll leave it at that because you can expand on that so much better than I can.
Well, the whole, we can talk about the color and we can just talk about the entire sort of visual voice of it, which is this, um, the, the whole thing can kind of be boiled down into modern nostalgia. Um,
I love that.
yeah, I was like, and here comes more. It's coming. Here it comes. I was like, and that goes like, and that's it. Goodbye. No, exactly. Um, from the beginning, I had a hunch. I never like to I try to sort of challenge my own first impressions, if you will. But I knew you call it, what did you call it? The purple monster, the purple nightmare,
Purple monster's a better term.
Well, here's the deal with the color. The reason Comics Kingdom was primarily purple is because, King Features and Comics Kingdom, everything has a royal name. And so, and in a very traditional sense, there's this royal purple, right? Royalty equals purple. But the concept of royalty in that sense, like it doesn't get at the real why for why Comics Kingdom is special, why Comics Kingdom exists. And so when you think about Comics Kingdom, it's like it's the diversity of a community, right? It's the bounty and the plethora, and the feast of essentially like bites of delight, if you will. um, uh, that Comics Kingdom has to offer. And so our color palette has so much to do with essentially like honoring the roots of and the history of the genre, and also really trying to empower you, Olivia, to put forth a really modern experience. So, I knew at the beginning, I highly suspected that I was going to do something that was essentially kind of black and white or some variation of black and white, because I really wanted the actual comics to show through. That was one of the challenges of the old brand, is that it was competing, right? And at the same time, and I'm actually thinking about sustainability here too, and experience and growth. And any performance marketer is going to want a pop of color, and we also want to be able to join in on the fun as a brand, but you have to do it really carefully. So we have two primary colors of paper and ink, which are, of course, variations of literally the print medium, right? And empower you to have like a really clean options and a clean framework to present. And then we have this really fun primary action color of Young at Heart, which was actually something that was born out of looking at like literally digging through. Like we went and got, like, I have somewhere here, I have like a vintage Beetle Bailey comic book. And we went into like way deep into the history, into like, I think there's like a boy with the yellow pajamas, things like that, looking at the first colors and the colors that come up a lot, and also looking out, expanding outside of it. The 70s were a really big like shift in the genre, and looking at what happened there. What you're sharing. Yes, exactly. Here we go. Here we got paper, we've got ink, we've got Young at Heart. And that Young at Heart color is actually being pulled from both comics and pop art and all different things that happened across decades, but also in a very pivotal time. And it's also a very modern color. It's not orange. It's not red. If you want to get literal, it's like maybe a tomato, right? It's somewhere in between. And it is, Young at Heart, right? It's actually, it's alive, right? It's very vivid. But it's also not necessarily the hero color of a lot of comics. And so it was all like, believe it or not, we really obsessed over it. And then we have another color, and I was like, I'm pretty sure, it's called Old Soul, which is this, it's actually a color that we found as part of the aging process of some of the old original print pieces, a way that things were discoloring. It wasn't actually becoming like this. This was something that was happening like in the margins, in the shadows, like with literally like things that had been touched for a long time. So we use it very sparingly, but it's there for you if you just need to give something a little bit more dimension than a black and a white. Anyways, all for a reason. All for you.
No, I love that, especially when you go into Young at Heart, because I can just be honest about that. I remember when I first saw the color palette, I was really happy about paper and ink, and even old soul. Was it Old Soul? Was the name of the color?
Old Soul. It's called Old Soul.
Old Soul, and I loved it. And then I saw Young at Heart, and I was like, "Oh, we're doing."
I know.
So we're doing a red. I don't know about a red. And then obviously, as we went through the branding, we went further into it. I just fully admit, that is my favorite part of the site now. It's that Young at Heart. Like, I love that action color. I love it in the logo. I love everything that we've done with it. And yeah, so you've turned me.
Well, also, by the way, I'm sort of living proof of this, but red is my favorite color. But like this color red, do you see this lipstick?
Yeah.
Blue red, right? This is shocking lipstick red. It's like, this isn't Ruby Woo from MAC, but this is like it. It's iconic. But I hate orange personally. I live an orange-free life. And for a long time, not right now, but for a long time, in the sort of way millennial pink got really hot, right? It was sort of everyone's leaning on orange too much, and actually that's faded quite a bit, and everything's happening very differently. I really am kind of both proud of myself, like my work is to be objective, and I was like, here you go, I'm proving it. Look, I gave you a sort of orange, and also it does stand out. It is something kind of ownable and special, and it just, when you see it in context of all the actual work that the creators, who were really, this is really all a love letter to the creators and the fans, like when you see it in context, it just works.
Yeah.
So that I was very happy when we got the new branding, and I got to dig into it and start playing with the colors, and that red orange, because it really is that good mix of red and orange. It's the perfect mix.
Thank you.
It played very well with the tone of white, because it's an off-white.
It's not. That's right. It's paper.
It is paper. And the black, which again, with those, there's something about having the clean aesthetic, but with that very oomph color that makes it feel very intentional rather than let's just throw color everywhere. And then again, it lets the comics speak. And so I think it was a very brilliant choice to go to the more neutrals with just don't wave me away. You get you get the compliments. Bring more. But it was really a delight to be a delight. We're gonna just keep using that word.
Keep doing it.
It was a delight to work with that palette. It made a lot of inspiration come forth from that. So thank you.
No problem. It's also, you mentioned something that's really important, I think, too, which is that there's intentionally not too many colors to choose from. I think this is common. I have like inherited brand guides and like come in to sort of rebrand. That happened to me recently, where I could not believe, and it felt like a death by committee or like it was done out of fear, where it's like, you know, maybe in your old brand, you got really tired of a certain color palette. So then all of a sudden you were like, we need more options, more options. More is actually not more. And I am obviously a maximalist here, right? But like more is not more when it comes to, especially when you are launching and reintroducing yourself or introducing yourself for the first time to many people. You actually want to go in with a tight visual voice so that people recognize you, so it has impact. And so I really love what you've done with it and how you've sort of taken it well over the finish line. And it was really intentional to keep it tight and to really make that young at heart be like your one big moment of pop.
Yeah, and obviously from a branding standpoint, and then everything you've done on the UX side, Olivia, I think I can happily say we achieved that, right? Before we move off of that, I'm interested, Olivia, from a UX and UI perspective. Obviously, there's a lot to play with, right? From where we were and where we are today. But what stood out to you at the very beginning and through this process across the board for Comics Kingdom again, and what we've ultimately delivered here?
What stood out on the old site versus now, or what in the project in general?
Yeah, I think we can start there. What the contrast of, you know, old and new, and then maybe even a little bit of what we went through, because we're going to jump into like what navigating, you know, hurdles and so forth were.
I think the biggest difference, and as the listeners can attest, as they're playing with the new site, hopefully you notice, very intentional with how the information is laid out in the new site to make sure that it's not content overload. You're understanding how to search for things. I think with the old site, it became a little bit too in your face, especially with the color use. And so it was hard to digest what you were looking at. And it felt like an overwhelming experience. At the same time, underwhelming, because when you went into the comic, you were stuck into this little zone and you wanted to be able to easily navigate between things and, oh, I want to actually look at this one, but it felt like it was too siloed. With the new experience, we wanted to make sure that it was definitely a seamless one that really took into account how is the user actually going to use this site and how will they enjoy it, and will they be utilizing filters more, because that is something that nowadays people want to get to their content fast and have more control over it. So that was the big differences that I noticed. And I do think I guess I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. It's kind of a hurdle, but it was something that I noticed in the old site was not tailoring towards all demographics. So that's something maybe I'll save for a hurdle.
We hope you're enjoying the vibrant stories and behind-the-scenes glimpses on Inside the Kingdom. We have a small favor to ask. Help keep the comic conversation going by subscribing to our podcast on your favorite platform. And if you have a moment, please leave us a rating or review wherever you're tuning in. Your feedback not only supports us, but also helps other comic enthusiasts find us. Every subscribe, rating, and review makes a huge difference, and we truly appreciate your support. Or consider visiting comicskingdom.com and have a look at these comics yourself. Thank you. And let's get back to Inside the Kingdom.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely. As we go into that, I definitely also want to dive into the reading experience, which is part and parcel with this, right? I think maybe even so, probably the hero in all of this is that reading experience. Because as much as we went into brand and as much as we've gone into exploration, if you can't read the comic or the comics in a suitable way or a really pleasing way, then I think we've lost the battle, right? And I'm happy to say that I think one, what came out of all of our survey results, the stuff that the data that we pulled here on the King Feature side, what we know to be true in the marketplace. We this really is a testament to that evolution of how to get to a new digital first, a mobile friendly experience. And Sarah and Olivia, both of you, I'd love for you all to chime in a little bit more here on how you viewed that reading experience and how that evolved over time, one from a branding perspective, and then even on the UX side, like how you thought about that in that process. And then we can just jump right into like hurdles and all that stuff. And I am going to make time for the manifesto because Sarah, I need to hear it again. I love it. And I think our audiences need to hear it as well.
We can tell the story of how I cried on the first read. It will only be mildly embarrassing. Okay, where do we start? There were several questions there.
Several questions there. So let's start about the evolution of the reading experience. The old website, happy to say that we are no longer going from left to right. Though we all read left to right, it's not necessarily a new age digital experience.
It felt like, by the way, it's because like I can't really speak to. I do a ton of experience work, but this was really Olivia's time to shine. Although, like we made little sort of teasers and like almost, like that we gave you the tools we could, but then you made it all really possible and real. But I will say about the site, the old site, like you've heard of mobile first. This was essentially like a print first, which is not. And the thing is, that's actually so much of why we wanted to do. And it's funny. I was like, I didn't even, when we talked about color, by the way, I was like, I'm going to jump all around. But like, I didn't even mention that I'm like wearing this crossword print. Like, I was like, of course, I tried to bring the theme. That. It's from the paper. But I think that's so much of what we wanted to do with the brand is honor like even people who are super fans who love experiencing all forms of panel art digitally, they love the tangible. They love having it. They have it framed. They have the books. They have the funny pages that meant the most to them, right? And so how can we honor that, but not literally from a UX perspective because it doesn't work, right? And especially in, I don't even want to call it like, it feels now that mobile first, yes, but also like that you can actually have very responsive experiences that are really meant to meet your reader where they are truly at. And so we did that with actually everything when it came to all the tools that we tried to give you. But what I notice in what I have seen so far, because I haven't seen all of it, I'm very excited, but like what I have seen so far is that you're also showing such a respect for your audience, for your audience's time, for your audience's relationship. It's a respect not just for your audience, also for the creator, right? So that you're not distracting them, that like they're actually spending time with you and you and you. They want, I don't even like the word content. Like, it's like they literally want that, like that aha moment, that little chuckle, all of those things. And like you are helping them get right to it. And it's a very empowering experience that you're creating.
Oh, well, thank you for that. Olivia's really, again, from a UX UI perspective and everything else that went into there from into this design, from your groundwork to what 10up implemented here. I thank you for those words, but Olivia, truly, you are the brainchild behind this here and how this all came together. So let's talk about
team. Let's never forget
your team
too. So I think the biggest thing behind the reader was definitely to make sure that it was mobile first. It was very responsively designed. So as you are on your phone and you're going through, if there is a specific strip that is very long, you have that ability to do a horizontal scroll, but also there is a little notation to rotate your phone. So you can rotate it and the entire screen will then obviously make it so that it's bigger, more easily digestible, we wanted to have multiple routes so that the user could engage with the smaller content on their phone, because let's face it, everyone is on their phones trying to get to content. But in terms of color, I think what is really fascinating about the reader experience is that it's in dark mode, essentially. And the reasoning behind that is really to elevate the comics themselves, because what were comics always traditionally printed on? White. And so the base of all of these strips is white. We wanted that to really pop off of the screen so you can see the details of the comics and not get lost within the page itself. So the black gives a really good contrast for that. And again, makes the comics the hero. And with this, I don't want to call it a never ending scroll, but essentially it is. It's allowing them to have this ability to really seamlessly continue to read and really get lost in their favorite comics. And I think that makes it much easier than having to engage with a button every single time they finish a strip. It's just a much more seamless experience. And that's what we were really going for them.
Yeah, I think to package that up a bit, the old experience it was just dated. You can just tell that it needed the refresh that you all have given it. And the reading experience is part and parcel with that, right? It's probably the most representative of that. And just the fact that we have a semi-infinite scroll, right, if you will, where everyone is. And to your point, everyone is on their phone. Even the naysayers that I'm sorry, prefer a hard copy of the comic and so forth, still on their phone 90% of the time, right? And so, yeah, that goes in there. I'd like to jump into some of the challenges, because this is where it gets into the nitty gritty, right? Like, what was the biggest hurdle for you, Olivia? And then Sarah, I'll go jump right into you.
Think of one.
Do I have to just say one?
Yeah, let's run down the list.
Let me just open up my scroll really quick. No, I would say I'm gonna go back to the demographic comment that I made earlier. I think that with wanting to make sure that we're not only really creating experience for those dedicated users now, but also making sure that the experience is tailored to those consumers that may not know that this is a site that would appeal to them, was a really big task to undertake, because there's different levels of technological knowledge. And so making sure that we're having really prominent CTAs and understanding of how does this actually flow? What are common ways to utilize a website that is understood across demographics, and making sure we're not going too crazy, too fancy with things, so that it's not overwhelming to those that are very used to what currently exists. We wanted to give it that elevated feel, but also make sure that it's grounded in familiarity. So that was a really interesting balance to constantly walk. But I do think that we were able to achieve that. And I'm very excited to hear what the users all think as they're diving in and using it. So that was definitely a hurdle. I would say the other hurdle would be making sure, again, like this is kind of leaning into my super creative side. I really wanted to go crazy with animations and be wild with, the illustrations for you all, because this is such a cool concept, cool project. But I realized I needed to rein it in a little bit and again do those bites of delight. So that was a personal hurdle for me, is just making sure that I'm very sparing and intentional with the choices that I'm making throughout. And again, very pleased with the decisions that were made. And I think I do have to say thank you all at Comics Kingdom for being the most fantastic partners on this. When I say I haven't had a client like this, I really have not, because you all were so engaged the entire time. and so willing to just hop on a quick design session with me while I was in Figma doing quick edits. And so I really appreciated that collaboration with you all.
Oh, well, the pleasure is all ours. I'll be totally frank. Those UX sessions, I think I cherish those the most because it was literally like I get into the weeds of helping build a website, right, and so forth. It's where in the past it's always been just we commission the work and it happens, right, and that sort of thing. I also want to call out similar to how the red won me over. I remember one of your early designs with all of the animation. I guess the one of the references, I guess, that had all the animation. And I was so in love with that too. I was like, this is gonna be so cool. We're gonna have just characters popping out everywhere. Just everything's gonna load. Yeah. And then I think also, thankfully, we have a team of individuals that reined us in a bit. They're like, okay, let's just bring that back. We still have plenty of animation across the site. Yeah, let's throttle it down a little bit. We don't need to make this a video site. It was really cool to see and envision anyway. But Sarah, same for you. I guess, what would you consider, or what were some of your largest hurdles and maybe even milestones that you?
Milestones. Okay, cool. I was like, well, now I was ready for. Here's the game. All right. I feel. No, it's fine. Well, two things came up for me. One is actually exactly what you've been talking about, Olivia, in terms of like modernizing the experience. Like one of the most wonderful things about working with the team at Comics Kingdom is that it is such a small but mighty team of people who really, really love comics, and are making it their life's work to save and find a sustainable way forward for a medium that everyone loves. But nobody want to pay for it. No, sorry. But anyways, I was like, keep the comics coming, everyone. Do it. If you love it, you have to, clap. But we actually, in our brand guidelines, like we created options essentially because there's lots of challenges. You have just, countless, you have an archive of art. There are challenges in that, like a lot of not even true vintage comics that are coming out today. Artists are working across panels. There's lots of it's a wonderfully constrained and also not at all constrained medium, right? And designed primarily for print. And so we knew we want to go vertical, right? But we basically presented all of the options that we thought were viable, and we showed vertical, and we were like, here's the dream state, right? And for when you can't, we did exactly what you're talking about, where like it literally in dark mode and like turn your phone, and you can get more of a horizontal experience that is more optimized for wider, or even just like like sometimes it rhymes with orange. Spoiler alert, it's my favorite. Although I have love in my heart for all my comic strip artists.
Oh, Hillary loves it too. Yeah.
But I was like, meet them, Olivia. I got to meet them. Anyway, by like figuring out how to optimize for that experience and sort of respect and not for the sake of mobile, actually like at the end of the day, it's all about like honoring the actual art form too. So like, how do we do it? And then also even experimenting with side scroll, right? And like figuring out how you could do one panel at a time, side scroll to get through something that really can't be cut up easily, things like that. So that was actually a really interesting challenge. And also what was tricky about that is that, this is a common sort of challenge where you get involved in sort of like the politics and the admin, and like your small team like has to like, who's going to slice up who is going to do that, the entire history of Comics Kingdom? And like, do you actually have, like, is that a practical thing? And also, if we do not make a leap forward here, it's not going to happen. Like, we're going to leave an entire generation of like new readers in the dust. Like, they're not going to come, right? And so I love that you've really went for it. And also, but essentially creating options where everything can coexist, as part of like the foundation that we brought to you. And then the other challenge is actually T, your editorial director, had a baby.
Yeah, she did, and congrats.
So the infamous first read of the manifesto was what I thought would be T's like last time with us, but she actually like had the baby that day. So I was getting messages being like, T's not going to make it. Probably partially why I cried. Anyways, I really, those would be the biggest challenges. But the milestones, I was like, so this meeting, right? This meeting that if you want, this could work into the manifesto. Should just work right into the manifesto. I can make it happen.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is the right moment for it.
Okay, great. So I also work with a small but mighty team, and I had two incredible writers help me, and then I do a lot of the writing as well. And so Emily and Stephanie on my team, they worked on what I call the living values. That's another podcast. And working up to this manifesto moment, which speaks to sort of the unique why of why Comics Kingdom is. It literally is even called Comics Kingdom. It is what it is, all of the things, right? I was like, you're gonna, yes, exactly. Here are the living values, right? In fact, yes, we are a nest for storytellers and fans alike, a bite of delight. We are making new friends while cherishing the old. We are trustees of the art form. There's T right there. That's what T is. That's what you all are, Alex. You are really like helping like this evolution along incredibly. And we should talk about what you're doing with Popeye. I'm sure you're going to do a whole episode on that. Keen observers and active participants, right? So we start there. And then I'll be real with you. The day that I presented the manifesto, which is the day that T had the baby, I was meeting with a new client. I traveled to the Bay Area working with a holistic wellness center. They specialize in psychedelic psychotherapy. I had a treatment, not of psychedelics, but of acupuncture. And I had this like incredible experience with acupuncture, learned that T's having her baby, right? And I'm like, T's having the baby. And then I also read, I had saved some time before the meeting. I read the first complete draft of the manifesto Stephanie had sent to me, and I burst into tears because she had done it. Stephanie had done it, right? And I had like a little tweak, things like that. Like I was ready to, sometimes I have, a heavier edit, but she had done it. And I told her, I was like, I burst into tears. And she was like, but I was also emotionally raw from the acupuncture. Then I get on the call with you. And remember, I'm in this, like, I'm in Berkeley, California now. You can all tell I'm not in New York. I'm talking slow. I'm like, hi, everybody. And I read it to you. And at the end, and I think I read it multiple times because somebody popped on the call. So I did it again. And at the end, I burst into tears both times. And I remember being so embarrassed. And I was like, it would be tackier if I was crying at my own words. But this was Stephanie who wrote this. And so I was
this was definitely a moment, definitely a milestone. And Olivia, I wish you were there for this because this is so great. It was so heartfelt and yeah, anyway, sorry.
Well, no, and the other thing is, it was also like a real primer into like who I am. I think you must have like thought like, who is this woman, right? Because I'm just like crying on the call.
Not at all. I loved every moment of it.
Deal.
I loved every moment of it.
What I would do, no pressure, but what I would do is I'll do my dramatic reading of it. I hope to goodness I don't flub it. But what you should do is you should fade out and fade into our beautiful anthem that is mostly these words. That's what you should do. You should because you should literally fade me out. I'll begin it and then you go into it. You can even like part of this could be in your, no pressure. I'm just like, I'm creative directing here because we created this incredible video that Stephanie's voice is on, that Emily's voice is on, that a lot of people in our families and my friends' children are on, that is actually an expansion of this manifesto. But here I go. Every strip starts with a sketch, a gag, a storyboard, an inkling of an idea brought to life by a pencil, some paper, okay, occasionally a tablet and a stylus, and an altogether personal point of view. It's the first step in a hero's winding journey, both the characters and the creators, soon to meet the fans who will cheer them along. Comics Kingdom is for those who believe in limitless creativity, barely contained in a bite of delight. The ones who must make against any obstacles, whether pioneers or next generation, in service of an art form that nudges us all forward, eliciting chuckles, catharsis, and connection. We're a haven for those who absolutely worship cartoon history and are eager to preserve and transform. A community for the people who open the funnies every week or get the digital scoop any day. A place for enthusiasts to support others and recognize the wonderfully human lessons and observations depicted through a beloved and all too rare craft. A platform for artists to breathe new life, share new experiences, and reach new friends. A way to come together through a niche that unifies, one of the lightest ways to deal with heavy stuff. For those, for us, and all, our mission is to keep the comics coming. And I still get a little emotional. I get all tingly.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful.
And that's the power of teamwork here too. There's a lot of love, a lot of conversations with creators, with fans, with editors, with you, with everybody with everyone that would talk to me, and then bringing it to people who are in, like everyone on my team for sure, but I'm sure everyone, I can tell, like, we're all like kind of like wholeheartedly nerdy about something, right? And there's this wonderful sort of like misfits as heroes aspect to all of this. And this to me is the like linguistic translation of clap to bring Tinkerbell back.
And we're definitely bringing it to the websites. This is going to be on our about page because I think it's core to this whole project. Again, this love letter that we've created to comics, this manifesto just kind of like packages it all together in the right words, in the right structure, and for everyone to consume and understand. And I think, yeah, keep the comics coming is a very strong message, and it's what we're trying to do. All right, so we've discussed milestones and hurdles, and many that there were, and on both sides, there were many milestones, there were many achievements here. When I first saw the comic reader, and when I first saw the account pages, and when we first saw the animations take life, that was all like, yes, let's deliver the website now. And this is like October, which is like 10% of the site was done. And I'm like, yes, let's go live. Let's do it. Right. But no, if we haven't said this already, I think I should say it right now. This site, as you're reading this, listening to this, I should say, you're already playing with the website. But if you're preemptively listening to this podcast, the site is launching on February 28th. I'll introduce a slow clap here or something in the background in celebration, but that is our launch date. And so I hope you all are enjoying what we've lovingly produced for you. But jumping right back in, we live in an age, we're talking about digital and Comics Kingdom being a digital platform. We live in an age where social media is king, right? That's what we as cartoonists and creators and even businesses are relying upon to drive new audiences, drive awareness, and even just cultivating just fan bases and communities. Can you both think about or expand on how social media maybe helped form some of what your design decisions were, or how you view comics in general, and then just how that might have transformed some of the storytelling that we see on site and even now?
Yeah, I can jump in and first start by saying I think that social media definitely has a grip on people, and the way that information is so quick to come by and how attention is very little. People need their information quickly. And so I think that really influenced how the reader was structured because of the fact that there is this idea of infinite scrolling that is in social media across the board. So having the ability to just quickly scroll through the different comic strips so that it is giving this what would be a familiar type of interaction that you see on social media to the comic reader experience, I think was a very one-to-one type of interaction, but we still wanted to break it out a little bit separately, giving those filtering abilities so that it feels a little bit more, I guess, personalized. So that would be a huge inspiration that was taken from social media from a UI UX perspective.
I love that because yeah, I mean I remember that being something that we were trying to achieve early on, and that we were thinking infinite scrolls get in. Let's just always stay in and stay there, right? Really
That
consume
was
this
the first
content.
conversation that I think we had.
Right.
Design alignment workshop, infinite scroll. It's like writing this down.
It's like, how do we create Instagram for comics, and not create Instagram for comics, right? Because there's also a downside to social media, to your point, attention, distraction, all that stuff. But Sarah, how about you? How did this help shape maybe your storytelling or what you thought from a design perspective?
I think, well, one challenge that we didn't really talk about with the old site is that, it's my understanding, and it'll be really interesting to see how it evolves now that you're serving up like just a much more inclusive experience in many ways, is that the community management. So there's a lot of infighting in the comments, and it's not always the most like constructive space in the old site. And I think that part of that has to do with the fact that like it doesn't actually feel like, in the way that the old site was structured, it doesn't actually feel like anyone besides the people literally like in the comments right next to you can actually see what you're doing. Like, you don't actually suspect that one of the comic strip artists will actually see what you're saying. And so it just makes it a little bit, it might, I just suspect that it might sort of breed a little bit of, and it's also maybe because it's not a particularly modern experience, or it wasn't a particularly modern experience, it in and of itself is a bit of a frustrating experience. And so to give people that ease, and also, Olivia, you talked about attention, right? But like, and we keep talking about bite of delight, but comic strips are, like by design, short. They're brief. And so, it's this sort of like perfect pair, but like the royal we had not made the connection yet, right? So it's really just like bringing those things together. And also, like when you bring those things together, think about, we all know that there can be trolls on social media, but when you actually feel that you're visiting with, like the creator, that the creator is maybe even going to get an alert, when you do something on social, right? um it 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 can actually, it can breed more, I don't even want to say positivity, but yes, of course, positivity, but just encouragement. I think that most humans that come into contact with comic strips are very encouraging, and delighted. And so, like, using essentially like the language of social media, and applying it to sort of like the obviously perfect pair of a short form, both visual and written, like we talk about, Alex, sorry, I'm jumping around, but like Alex, you talked about, like how you can't draw a stick figure. And I was like, everyone can draw a stick figure, by the way. But you talk about, but you can write. And it's like, but actually comics is writing, both the artist and the person writing any sort of, like a speech or thought bubbles there. It's all a form of writing. And so, and that's what you really see with all of the content creators on social too. So essentially giving some of the tools that a lot of the social creators have to the comic creators can be an all boats rise situation. It feels like it's instantly modernizing. It feels like it, like this, there's this digital pulse that the world is more increasingly fluent in across generations. Think about, like I'm working on content for menopause on TikTok, like welcome to the new world. Like we're all here. And it just seems like it's actually just like, it's not even like of course social's the answer. It's like, yeah, of course social's the answer. Like they are two peas in a pod. I'll stop there.
Well, I love that you actually bring that up, especially the commenting function. That's something that I don't do a good enough job of surfacing in conversation, but I think it's part, again, I'm going to say part and parcel again, but really at the core of what we're building here, down to the logo. Like we have talking speech bubbles, and it's this idea that we want people to commune and communities to unite on this one larger community of Comics Kingdom. But yet in every comic that we have these sub communities, and we have these fans that are fans of their favorite comic, and they want to talk to the fans alike and troll to some extent. We do have the snark and we do have the trolls. And I think that's part of social. We just know what that is, social media in general, but communing. And so building that into the reading experience, I think was really, really core for us. something that we didn't do well in the old site. If I'm going to just be frank, I think the way we've nested it into the conversation or the space now with the new reader, and I'd love for you to talk about that, Olivia, expand on that a little bit, because I think that came rightfully so from you, and how we nested that, I think is important, because to your point, it's absolutely that the creator does see this. This is a home. They see it in the past and they're going to see it now, and they'd love to actually participate. A lot of them via pseudonym. If you fans are listening and don't realize, the creators are in there with you, communing and talking. Not all are actually letting you know they're artists behind it, but they are defending their work when you snark, and vice versa. And so that two-way channel of communication was important to us, because this is about community building. It is about building and nurturing this larger community of comic fans and nerds and just passersby, right? To steal something from your manifesto on living values, we are a nest for storytellers and fans alike. And so that was part of what we wanted to build there.
You're absolutely right, though, because when I was talking to many of the comic strip creators, they talked about the comments. Here's another reason for why now the creators themselves were getting weary of your current experience, because it was not fostering that like spark of connection that we know is really like in the hearts and minds of the true fans, like at every level of fandom, if you will. But people were like, artists, we creative folks, we are very sensitive souls. And, I encourage everyone to, even if you want to challenge something, it's absolutely fine, but be kind. People actually, this takes a tremendous amount of vulnerability to do what these folks are doing. And they see more than you think by far. And so I think that we're all hoping that the new site is a place where actually creators, like many of them do spend their time there, but want to spend more and more time there, because it really is for fostering that connection. And Olivia, like, take it away. Here's the ball.
So what do you want me to touch on?
How the design of the community and commenting functionality morphed in your mind into what we put onto the site. I feel like it was very separated in the past, even though they were on a unified page, but they weren't. It never felt like they were connected.
It didn't feel like organic, right?
Yeah.
It didn't feel like the way that we've grown accustomed in a best practice sense, like across all different types of social media. Yes, tell us, Olivia, how did you do it?
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm trying to how. So I hope that was even close to the level that you just achieved. For comics commenting, it really was making it more akin to social media again, and just having it feel like it was nested with each individual strip, if that's the case for that specific comic. And so it felt like it was essentially taking it a level up and having it so that you can see it at each level, essentially, rather than, okay, it's for all of these, and it feels very much I don't know what the word is that I'm trying to look for, but essentially we really wanted to make sure that comments were highlighted as attached rather than separate, because it definitely, I agree, felt like it was not a consistent experience. It was nested. When I was first digging into the site and looking through comments, I didn't really realize it was connected. It was with that specific strip. It felt like I was looking at just a comment in general with the entirety of the feature itself.
Yep.
So making it a lot more clear, like you can actually comment on this specific strip. It felt like, again, tying it back to social media and how Instagram specifically does it and where you're commenting on it. I feel like it will be a more clear situation of, hey, the artist is actually going to see this because this is associated with the strip itself. I would be curious, and I like to pose this, is there a way to make even verbiage that states such so that it's more obvious? Like, let's not be crazy here.
I will
Yeah.
help craft it. I'm with you. Well, because that is what we were hoping, is that it would actually feel like, like we looked at a lot of other apps, that like manga apps and a lot of other panel apps, when we were like pulling together sort of the foundation of what like digital layouts could look like and feel like. And we looked at like Webtoon was really big. And like, I was like, a gentleman who cat sat for me, sat next to me and showed me and like took me on a ride on Webtoon and said like how it talked about infinite scroll, but also talked about how it was the most positive community. And it was also like the whole experience was encouragement. And it should feel like, you're absolutely right, like we should take this is a fast follow if we need to, but like it should feel like, because this is what you are truly doing, it should feel like you are commenting on that artist's work, and that this is sort of like their digital home for their work, and that you have that real one-to-one connection. That's what we should be fostering, and I think that you've taken like a massive leap in beyond the right direction there.
Yeah, exactly. I think you hit it right on the head. Because it is that the old site did have that disconnected experience, even though they were housed on the same page. And you're absolutely right. It never felt like you were commenting on that strip, or that you would easily know that you were commenting on that strip. And so I love what we've done now. I love what that's going to do to foster that sort of communication, and hopefully two-way, right, from our creators down to the fans. And I'm with you, Sarah, and lockstep. Let's do this fast follow, and let's work on the verbiage on like, this is how we want you to commune on here. We appreciate the feedback across the board. And I think a lot of, I'm hesitant to blame this on demographics, but a lot of legacy fans have a different way of communing with their art. And I think it's from that standpoint that they never understood the creator would really read this, right? It's just them and their fan groups and newspapers. And it was sort of disconnected. And now that's not the case anymore.
It also, like, change is hard. Change is hard for all of us. And I was like, it's coming for us. I was like, Alex, someday we are going to be the ones that they were like, oh, look, you're the ones that are like persnickety. We're going to be like, do you remember when it was mobile first? Do you remember when I could just infinitely scroll? Those were the days. Um, I, but I, I think that like, I think that like the old site was also just really, it felt very corporate, right? And like while Hearst is like 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 it's like part parent of King Features, I love how your fearless leader CJ calls it. I think she said something like it's 100-year-old startup. And like, I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone knows the old Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn movie Desk Set. And I used to work at the Condé Nast Archive, and we archived the New Yorker cartoons there too and everything. Like, if you could imagine the spirit of what the team at Comics Kingdom is, it is like Desk Set. It is like a group of like deeply learned, like archival, like comic strip, like nerds. And I say that in the most sacred sense, right? Like banding together on a budget to keep the comics coming, to keep the comic strip artists like self-sustaining. Like, it is really everyone like holding an arm in to keep it together, right? And you just didn't feel any of that, right? So like, like when like people responding to that feeling, regardless of like, like across generational divides, it just feels almost like you're screaming into the void. And the only person that is actually going to see this is maybe the person next to you in the comments. And like, it just didn't feel like a real community. And already I can tell from what I've seen, it already is starting to feel, because of what you're talking about with social, right? It's starting to feel like a social space where everyone is communing.
I appreciate that feedback. Obviously, Sarah, you've only seen tidbits of what we've produced to this extent. You gave us the blueprint, if you will, and then we ran with it, and Olivia so expertly ran with it, and the team and so forth, and we expanded on that and evolved it into what we have today, and we're so proud of. I think that moves us right into, before we wrap up here, the future, right? And what do you well, before even, what do you expect from the future, right? Because that's changing. Apple's giving us screens on every wall in our room, and so we're talking about infinite scrolls on a mobile device.
Open the paper.
That may no longer be true 5 years from now.
Right?
Right. But maybe to our fans, and I'll start with you, Olivia, and then Sarah as well, and then I'll wrap up something here. What can our fans expect from this new site?
So much. Honestly, I would say a breath of fresh air. It's going to feel like a completely different site, but it's still grounded in the fundamentals of how do I get to my comics quickly and efficiently. And so I really do hope that they find that bite of delight consistently. I tried to implement that with animations, illustrations, but also I really am hoping that they find new avenues they might not have necessarily explored before because of the way that we've positioned content. So just easier to explore. I think that is something that is underrated with comics, is just the exploration factor. I think back to my childhood and being able to just go to a comic book store. Yes, I'm about to get nerdy and go through the different little I don't know what they're called. I guess milk carton. What are they?
Crates.
That's
Right.
milk crates.
We should do charades or something. I don't know.
Yes, but thank you. I was like, what is the word that I'm looking for? And just being able to look through the different comics and be like, this is so appealing to me and explore. So that's almost like the experience we have now taken into the digital forum and finding new comics that they may not have been able to see before because it was so varied. I think that is what I'm most excited for.
I love that. And how about yourself, Sarah?
Well, so it just reminded me of something that kind of getting back to how, brand is more than how you talk about what you do and how you package what you do. It's actually what you do. And it's essentially a framework for what you'll do now and what you'll do next. In our research, and it's a word that's come up a lot in our conversation naturally, and I think it's, in the manifesto casually, but it is like, this was the pattern when I was talking to fans. I mean, you can, like, speaking of demographics, like, you can only imagine how deeply introverted the people I might have been generally talking to were, right? And I am an extrovert that is like obsessed with the introverts. So it was a really fun time for me. But what was incredible and is that I'm talking to these mostly introverted folks, and they associated like so clearly their love and lifelong experiences of comics with connection, with feeling. And I'm literally reading this from my notes, like from way back, from like a year ago, with feeling understood, with not feeling alone, with feeling part of a community, part of the story. And it's often the only other thing in their lives that gave them the same or similar feeling of connection with, like, is actually connecting in person with special people in their lives. Like, this is like introverts saying, like, this is when I'm with my favorite people. Like, they're talked about like going to the park with friends and family and their children. And it's because I would take them through a journey, right? I would take them through a journey where I was asking them about, and we would get to, what it was about comics that how it made them feel, right? And then at the end, I would ask them, like, what else makes you feel that way, right? And like, where else do you get that feeling? And across the board, they would give like the most incredible personal stories, oftentimes from childhood too, associating with, like a gentleman I spoke to who was adopted, associated comics with literally like, it's like the first true feeling of a bond with his father who adopted him at age 7. And I was like, I'm sitting there on the call trying not to burst into tears. Like, this is the project that made me cry over and over again. Right. So I say all that because it's so funny when you were asking about social media. But like, what's happening next is that, like, this is all about connecting like fans and readers and explorers. I love how you talked about exploration. Right. And like with like what they love and and helping them to discover what they will love next. And so I'm sure that like, your MVP launch is going to, I mean, it's already like a huge leap in that direction, but everything that comes after it will be about continuing to spark that connection. Like that is the mission. And I'm so privileged to have been even a small part of it.
Well, again, we're privileged to have had you as part of this journey and this evolution, which I really want to harp on that word because I do see it as that. I think Comics Kingdom, King Features, the team, while we see this as a leap in tech experience, I think we also see that this is going to evolve over time as the medium changes and evolves over time. Excuse me. One thing that we talked about literally from a content perspective in design that we're going to launch and introduce later on this year is like long form comics and how the medium in itself is changing in that sense. The strip, or what we think of a common strip, is changing. And so connecting vertically and even again in long form, almost digital graphic novels, like that's going to come into the platform soon. New content obviously into the funnel, as much as we want to highlight and showcase the 100-year startup, right? The 100 years of content that we have here at our disposal and our classic and vintage and all that stuff and everything that's still currently going, like a Popeye, et cetera. There's this breadth of content that we're going to keep introducing into the platform that I think one is going to benefit everyone here on this call and everyone that's listening today, but these new fan bases, connecting them to all of this content in a way going forward. I think that's where we see the future for us here and this platform. And again, I'm super excited for how this is going to evolve over time. We talked about communities and we talked about commenting within this platform, but the extensions of that, I think of possibilities in like Discord and social media and all that stuff, how the world is just connected in all these different ways, but all kind of like to your point earlier, Olivia, kind of siloed. And so our hope is Comics Kingdom can become a nexus of that for the comic fan and especially for the comics at King Features. And yeah, I'm going to wax long on what the future is, right? But I'm going to stop myself before I start unveiling every roadmap plan that we have here. But needless to say, this is an evolving experience and one that we hope fans and creators like yourselves join us on. So before we end, though, just a little bit of fun.
Ooh.
Quick rapid fire session for you, Sarah, and you, Olivia, that our fans really want to know.
Oh, I bet they do.
They really want to know this stuff. So first and foremost, what's your favorite Comics Kingdom comic?
Who's going first? Sarah,
I'm putting you on the spot. I'm putting you on the spot, Sarah.
Listen, this is terrible. This is so hard. And like, I have so much, but it's got to be Rhymes with Orange. Like, I literally guffaw. I like it crying in a different way sometimes, just still giggling about certain ones I think about. Okay, great.
How about yourself, Olivia?
The Phantom. So do you know the reasoning though?
No, I want to hear this.
Because it's very dark, similarly to Batman, which is, my all-time favorite. I just find that it's very akin, and I don't know, I was instantly drawn, especially because of the drawing style as well.
Okay. Well,
and the animated series on the black paper and everything. Like, how much did you love that? You loved that, didn't you? You love it.
Well, you mentioned something earlier about Popeye, and obviously that's fun. And I'll just say Popeye is my favorite, obviously.
I'm so excited you're answering the questions because I figured, don't you host every episode? Do you answer the question every episode?
Not every episode, but I intro at least. We work here
I love this. We should ask you back formally. I'm like, yes, tell us, what is your favorite comic? It's Popeye. Good.
Popeye. But the reason I bring up Popeye is because Olivia, I think you're going to be very happy with what we're bringing to fruition in the Phantom world pretty soon, which I'm not going to announce today, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun for you.
Okay.
Next question, which I think, Olivia, you answered already, but you might as well reiterate. What was your first comic?
Batman. Ride or die.
So this is actually really interesting. This was really interesting. So I did not grow up in a house that the newspaper was delivered at, which actually is a really fascinating cultural and class. It's really interesting to while there are definitely some, I when I landed in New York and still pursuing acting, I won the lottery by getting a temp gig at the New Yorker. And then I ended up working at the Condé Nast Archive and archiving the New Yorker cartoons, among other things. And so it was actually New Yorker cartoons, but like well into my adulthood. And it's not that but I would say that those would be like, and that like there's one in particular, and I'm not going to say like Eric's name right, but it's like Eric Hilgert. There's one, it actually reminds me of my experience with Rhymes with Orange, where there's this great one where the caption is something like, I'm going to butcher it. It's something like, she spelled nothing but trouble, but it was dark, and I thought it spelled truffles. And I was snorting at my desk, crying, had it up on my and this to me, like to me, this is like a pivotal piece of like art in my life, and like speaks to my my core personality and sense of humor. And I did not do it justice, but it's great. It's really, really great. Okay, that's the end of that question, right? I answered that question. I answered that question. I was like, Olivia, I will volley to you. Oh no, you did it. You already did it. Alex, tell us what.
Oh, no. This is your show.
Like,
I only segued Popeye for the Phantom tease right there. But I guess if I'm on the spot, the first comic was Hulk. Hulk was my character growing up, and that's just my guy. I won't go through my whole Hulk history. I think this is a natural segue. Favorite artist?
Okay. Do you want me to go first?
Just like we say artist, like we're talking about
comic artist.
Okay, because I was like, am I about to talk about Kara Walker here?
Yeah, no, we're not going to Basquiat and all that stuff.
When I read that question, I instantly thought two answers, and they're both not comic artists.
So let's go down that road. Who's your favorite artist?
So in a traditional sense, it's Michelangelo. Okay. Then in a current artist setting, it's Lauren Rubin. If you haven't heard of her, look her up. Incredible artist, very, very realistic, and she does only digital format. So I found that really interesting. It's hard to be a digital artist doing that realistic of drawings.
Yeah, I think I'm actually gonna look her up because that's really interesting.
Yeah,
that she went that route. How about yourself, Sarah?
I have three. Although this is rude. I've met friends with these people. They're going to be like, "Why didn't you talk about me?" Well, there's a lot too. I mean, goodness, I I want to shout out the Walker family because I love. I'm very moved by like the generations, and like that it is a family affair. I think that's magical. We obviously have to shout out Hillary and Rena because like we both talked about Rhymes with Orange at some point in this. It's incredible. But I would say if I had to pick one in the comics family, it's going to be Olive Brinker, who creates Ray the Dove.
Yeah.
I just think that is such a special, like as a queer woman myself too, like it's just like it represents like her work is both absolutely delightful and represents like a new path forward and a commitment. Like, T is the one that like, so like helped make that connection and forge opportunity there. But I just think that like Olive's work is so core to the mission, and in speaking with her, Olive also just represents like why it's so important and why now. Like I was talking to Olive like on her lunch breaks while she was coloring in comics because she makes a daily comic, but like she has to diversify. So like I envision a world where maybe, just maybe, Olive could just be full-time creating. That's what I want for you, Olive. And then I also have to give a shout out to Liana Fink, who, you see all over. And I not Comics Kingdom, but she's here, she's there, she's everywhere. And I feel seen and attacked by her work.
I'm going to skip this question. The pickaxes will come at me after the fact. From all. I was like, you can't. I cannot. I love them all equally. I love them all equally. I love my daughter's stick figures. I'll say that. I love my daughter's stick figures. They're better than mine. So definitely better than mine. And then this one's a bigger one, which gets fun. But what is your dream comic sketch?
I have I have a problem.
dream panel? It can be anything.
I was like, Kristen, I should also give a shout out to Kristen on my team, who was our, art directing and lead designer, who did like any illustration work you picked up was Kristen's, and she did the logo and everything with me. She's my visual genius, and she'll be deeply concerned about what I'm about to show you. But you talk about how you can't draw. I was like, I'm also not an artist, but I went to one of those sip and paints fairly recently, and I couldn't bring myself to do the art that they wanted me to do. And I think that the teacher actually really respected it. And it was supposed to be pumpkins, and I couldn't do their pumpkins. So I created my pumpkins, this is my, look at you, including like my child, just like drawn by Sarah. But if you could see my babies, this is actually a fair resemblance. And my dream, like comic strip, is Busy and Trix. This is Isabella, which turned into Izzy Busy, which turned into Busy Phillips. And this is Beatrix, which turned into, Beatrix Potter, BB Newworth, Trixanda. I would like to see also, like, it's like a anxious attachment, avoidant attachment. Like, those are my babies, right? Ebony and Ivory, all of it's happening. I think it would make great material, and I'm ready for their comic. And I would love to hear them out loud. I feel I do. I think I should write it. I should do it. This is as good as it's going to get, though. So.
Oh, Sarah, that looks really good. You're saying as good as it's going to get. That looks very good. Like, I'm afraid to show you anything that I try to put together on a page. That is very, very good.
Yeah. Just sitting there going, can't do those pumpkins.
Yeah, that's good. I'm not going to whip out any of the stuff that I've been working on because that will take me too much time. So I'm going to grab figures around me. So like you were saying, I would love Batman, but I would also love, if you're familiar with the video games and the show, Geralt of Rivia from Witcher. So if they teamed up, that would be a pretty awesome story.
I believe it.
I think we've got an idea here. So I'm gonna talk to CJ. Let's see who we have to call and
make it happen.
That's an awesome idea.
I was like, vote for my babies. Oh, sorry.
Well, again, thank you both for joining us today. Truly, from me and the team here at King Features, we couldn't be more appreciative of you, Sarah, helping us through obviously this brand exposition and figuring out who we were and what we wanted to be in the marketplace, and then taking that to Olivia, you and 10 Up to bring this into fruition and really get us across the finish line. And again, to reiterate, this love letter that we've all produced here, I think we're so proud for and thankful to have partnered up with both of you on.
I want to jump in and also say thank you back. Again, just reiterating, your team was phenomenal to work with. And then thank you, Sarah, for doing that initial groundwork of the brand. Like, I really can't say thank you enough for that, because sometimes you get a brand and it's a little rough to work with. And
cat hair is everywhere here. For anyone looking at this, but that is one of the reasons that I literally founded my own studio, is because I was either in-house and inheriting a brand guide that coming from, and like, I admire so many like extremely prestigious like agencies at their work, but it's really tricky to like be handed a guide that like, does it really work? And so I'm very impressed, and also like I'm proud too. I was like, I'm so glad that we gave you enough to work with. Like, that is what we're on a mission to do, just like as a small but mighty team ourselves, that we want it to actually, like, the measure of great guidelines is that they're actually used. And I can see so much that you really like, it's a lovely call and response. So I thank you right back. And Alex, I thank you tremendously, times infinity plus one. I think that like, there's so much, like, we really are like, I'm on the team, but like, there's this like, like shepherding of this art form. But so much of what you are doing and bring to the table represents like the evolution that will really keep it going. And so like, I'm excited to watch what you do next.
Oh, thank you. Thank you again. And I'm excited that we're all going to bring this out, and really, really excited to see how our fans and creators react to what we brought to market. But again, thank you all for joining us. This has been Inside the Kingdom, and we hope you enjoy Comics Kingdom as much as we do. Bye, all.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us inside the kingdom. And thank you to Sarah Hartley, Olivia de Alba, everyone at 10 Up, By Heart, and at King Features who helped us bring this podcast and Comics Kingdom to life. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, or review the podcast wherever you're listening to today. And visit us at comicskingdom.com and enjoy some of these comics for yourself. Until next time, this has been Inside the Kingdom.